Hey guys, Stephen here in the Arctic Hope studio. I'm sure many of you guys have seen already the story of some 215 bodies of remains of Indigenous children out in BC. Yeah, these were all children who went to residential school. These were all kids who were taken from their homes. As an Indigenous man, as someone who is a Christian, as someone who preaches the gospel and platforms just like this. I mean, residential school by and large was run by the church, right? It was federally legislated and it was run by religious institutions, of which I in a one way or another I represent. I've been called a colonizer before. I've been called some pretty terrible names by my own people because of this message of the cross. The question I get asked sometimes is, why do you do it, right? Why do you preach a message that is run by institutions like this that ran residential schools and were the cause of some of the worst traumas that Indigenous people in Canada have ever faced. And not just in Canada, but really around the world. Stephen, why do you continue to represent this same body? It's a great question, I think. And it's a question that needs answering. What the cross is to me, what Jesus is to me, it's not a white man's religion. It's not something that any institution can claim as its own. And I get it that there's been some awful things done in the past through the church, but I think that just more points out to the fact that human beings are by nature broken. That you and I are capable of some really awful things, regardless if we are Indigenous or not. And what the cross is, what Jesus, the things that he spoke, the message that he brought to the world, really is the answer to the pain that Indigenous people have. I never went to residential school, but I was abused by a guy who went to the church that my family took me to. I loved the church, loved the people, and this guy was trusted. So I didn't go to residential school, and I didn't go through the things that my ancestors did. But to a certain degree, I can understand the pain. I can understand the confusion of kind of the lasting effects of abuse. And it is this power of God, it is this love of God that transformed the broken parts of my life. It is the message that Jesus brought that saved me from some pretty awful parts of my life. And it's this same message that I am convinced can really help Indigenous people in Canada. One of the things that Jesus said was he came to heal the brokenhearted. I mean, it's a real tragedy. It's a real tragedy that some of the worst pains that Indigenous people ever went through, some of the worst traumas were at the hands of people who represented this message of peace, of love, of forgiveness, of hope. The same message that I preach, that I talk about. I mean, that just irks me in a way that maybe you can understand, but maybe you can't. They were people, though. And that's kind of the bottom line. And that piece of legislation passed by the federal government was awful. But there still is a hope for us. There still is a hope for you. And that hope is the love that God gives. The hope is what Jesus can do in our hearts. I mean, my hope is that Indigenous people across Canada come to the place where they can forgive the past traumas, the past pains, right? They can forgive for all of the wrongs that have ever been done to us. And that is a power that only lies within the victim. And God is able to help us forgive people who've done us wrong. In light of everything that we're learning today, and by the way, this same type of thing, like there are communities all across Canadian Arctic. At least there's a few of them that have found these types of things. It's an awful stain on the Canadian story. But the love that Jesus puts in our hearts, the power of this love, is the very thing that will paint a beautiful future for every one of us if we're able to allow this love to come into our hearts. It's a completely different story. So, love you guys. We'll see you in the next video. Peace.